G'day, freedom lovers. How are we today? G'day. Just thought I'd give a quick intro just to say, look, for all the other bits and pieces that, are attached to this, they're already uploaded. Make sure you go back and have a look at the previous presentations. It's all relevant. But in the meantime, let's bring the Senator in. And this is the questions and answers from the people. Sorry, it took a little while to get this going. There was a little bit of editing in. You can place your bets and throw your comments in and how long you think it took me to put some of these blurs up because, I spent a bit of time.
Line up here.
Well, I've seen this thing on TikTok or whatever basically the other day, and what it was about land title in Australia.
Yeah.
And it was in fee simple,
Yes.
which has been changed supposedly by the federal government. Now, I don't know if you were this or whatever. Supposedly they have now changed it to just fee simple. That then is that every one of us in Australia will get our land taken away from us. Plain and simple. Can you elaborate on that first?
Okay, so I'm not up to what's in regards to in fee simple and whatever, but I can tell you it wasn't the federal government that changed that. If it's been changed by the state government, right? Because it's state governments that deal with land titles, not the federal government, right? That's the responsibility of the state government. Now, there's a few different issues here. Well, that's one very specific issue. Our lands title office was privatised by Jackie Tragg. She rolled it over into the Public Servant Defined Benefit Scheme, which was a backdoor privatisation. Like the Victorian government sold the Department of Main Roads, the registration part, right? Like they're now private, after they sold all the real infrastructure, they're now selling government services, and of course eventually they'll start clipping a ticket. So I have a real issue with privatising our titles office. The second issue is our titles have been digitalised. I don't have any problem with that. We live in the 21st century. We deal in, electronic records, right? What I do have a problem with is that we should still be able to get a paper copy of the digital record, right? I mean, I understand it's been kept on one.
It's going to answer what you're saying there. You can still get that, but you've got to pay for it.
Right, okay.
So once you pay off your house, you have to pay them to get that paper title. They'll still keep the digital title,
right.
But what they did to change is basically say now we are leaseholders of our own land.
Okay,
not the
hang on, so now this is the third part where this is the same thing as the use of language. So Len Harris is going to court. So let's wait and see what the judge says. I don't know what the outcome's going to be. You never know with these judicial decisions anymore. They're all over the place. So let's see what the judge says, number one, and let's see what the state government does in response to the judge's decision. Because I cannot see how they're going to allow our properties to remain leasehold, because apparently this thing happened in 1992 and no one's picked it up or whatever. I don't quite understand everything behind it. But given that half the land or buildings, whatever, have been sold since 1992, that will then invalidate every contract. So I think if there's been an administrative error in the law, is that they will go back, and state governments can do this retrospectively, they can fix it up so that everything's actually leasehold. So I just don't want to make a decision make a call on that until the judges, the freehold, my bad, you know what I mean. I don't want to make a call on that until the judge makes his decision, and we'll work out what to do after then.
So I guess quickly, everyone, I can talk from personal experience. I paid my house off last year here in Townsville. I banked with the NAB. Basically, it cost me $550. 350 of that was NAB's fee. It's the registration to get your house. Basically, it was the NAB to say they didn't have an interest in my land.
Yeah.
Didn't receive any title, but they just get $350 for jam. It was only $200 to go to the registry office. You can do it yourself, but you don't actually get. All I got was that declaration that the NAB doesn't have any claim on the land, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been paying
pay for the privilege.
Yeah, well, I generally use the lawyer when I bought my couple of houses, and there's fees, like they have a title fee, a search fee, all that stuff. Like they milk you every time you buy or sell something. Yeah.
Yeah, hi Jared. Thanks for. One of the most shocking things that I've I've heard you talk about is the gold that's been sent overseas.
Yeah.
Is there any updates on that? Because every time you bring it up, it's they just run away. They don't talk about it.
Yeah. So, for those of you who follow the gold bug, who are gold bugs and are following my questions on estimates, we hold 90 to 80 tonnes of gold at the Bank of England. Now, I got onto this years ago because for the first time in 2013 they actually did an audit of our gold, and the RBA wouldn't release the findings of that audit. So I was quite shocked. When I this is even before I entered Parliament, I was quite shocked. I got onto gold about 15 years ago when I realised after Alan Greenspan went, Greenspan went nuts and then Bernanke went nuts in GFC, and I was like, hang on, I've been told that this is where it all started to unravel for me, because I've been told that university you couldn't print money out of thin air and everything. And I used to subscribe to a really good blog called Macro Business. I don't know if any people here follow it, but I follow the two authors there who are very good. They're very well versed in global capital markets, and they sort of pushed me into gold. Well, not pushed me, they didn't push me, but they got me interested in the power of gold. Now, gold itself, I mean, it has a certain amount of utility in terms of jewellery and, used, I think they use it, Air Force private pilots, there's a bit of gold apparently in the shield they use. So it's used, it is used, I think some of it's even in your iPhone. But it is a form of insurance and a form of control over central banks. Because if you let central banks go, they will print money. Eventually, like all governments, sooner or later, it's like going in a casino, right? Sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll lose. Sooner or, if it's like going out drinking, soon enough you'll go out drinking, you'll have one night where you have one too many, right? We've all done that in the past, right? So sooner or later when it comes to managing money, you're going to have a reckless president or prime minister or a reckless central banker where suddenly, the taps turned on and inflation gets out of hand, and rather than go back and tax the people or cut spending, they just start printing money. It's inevitable, right? It's going to happen. And when that happens, that's when the power of gold becomes very valuable. The other reason why gold is very valuable is if we were invaded by China tomorrow and our government was to fall, all of that cash that's been issued by the Commonwealth of Australia is worth zip, right? And as a matter of fact, most of the land you own will be worth zip. So all this stuff we're talking about the titles office, and I talked about titles before, the Chinese take us over, they'll go, well, they ain't your title anymore, we're the government now, and we've just taken all your titles from you just like that. Okay, so the only thing you can have left and flee with is gold. For two reasons: it's the densest metal, 16 times denser than any other metal, so it's very, even though it's heavy, you can carry it, and Australia's unique in this, and that it may not be as valuable to Australians as what it is to Europeans. So in the old days, when you're living in the Middle East, when it was the Hittites versus the Assyrians or the Babylonians versus the Greeks or whatever, if you lost a war, you could flee with the gold, knowing that when you went to another country, that gold would be a medium of exchange. Right, so that's why, now that the gold price is going up, I do own gold shares, full disclosure, but I'm also very nervous because it's a sign that things are going to get bad very soon. So that is why we hold gold. Now, the technical reason why they hold gold in another country is the idea that if we fall, we've still got gold in another country, right? So the Chinese can't get our gold. Of course, that's a convenient excuse for the Rothschilds and whoever who owns the gold, because they'll go, oh, well, too bad there's no government left. So they did that with Venezuela. The Bank of England did that with Venezuela. They didn't like the Venezuelan government. They said, oh, well, we're not going to give you your gold back because we don't like you, right? So, but long story short, our RBA, so I've also not only chased up on the gold, I've also asked the RBA for the minutes of the meetings they have with the International Bank of Settlements. The International Bank of Settlements is the central banker to the central bankers. Michelle Bullock said quite openly, she said, we can't give them to you, because if we give them to you, we won't get a seat at the table. So in other words, she has admitted that the banks have, I mean, I'm just a senator, I'm not trying to sound like myself here, but she wouldn't give these documents to a senator whose role is to basically be a house of review and hold the bureaucrats and these independent bodies to account. She says, no, the banks come first. The banks are over the top of you and we can't tell you what the banks are up to. Right? So what happens is that gold is sitting in London. It is a part of the leasing pool, the central banking leasing pool. that until very recently has been used to suppress the price of gold. Because they don't, the moment people get a whiff that it's on, and they lose confidence in the banks, so you saw them quickly line up that first day of COVID when everyone was out of work, so they had to bring in JobKeeper. When confident, it's like water over a damn wall. All the time that water's building up, and if you're on the other side of the wall, you've got no idea it's building up. And then once it comes over the top, then it's on. It's too late, right? The water's tipped over the top. So that is the power of gold, and that is why we should, and by the way, they're also acting against our best interests, because believe it or not, we're the world's biggest exporter of gold. We're the second biggest miner, but the world's biggest exporter, because China's the biggest miner. They hold on their gold, they're not stupid. So whenever they seek to suppress the price of gold, they're pushing down the gold price, which actually impacts gold miners. So there's still gold mines, I think, floating around Charters Towers and stuff, but gold has been one of our, if not our biggest exports since 1850. Right? So gold's been very good to Australia, and for the central bank to be working against the price of gold, against the so there's currently over 100,000 people that work in the gold industry, particularly in Western Australia. That's huge gold mining. I think there's more people work in the gold industry in WA than there are in the iron ore industry, even though more money's made out of iron ore at the moment. Like, we've got gold mines over there that have been going for over 100 years. Some of these things, like some of the Walia mine and some of those classic gold mines, they're just the stuff of legend. So that's why gold's very important. That's why the RBA, they have taken the side of the central banks. They are yet again, like I said before, energy markets, monetary markets, taxation system, immigration, gold, they're working against the people. And this is why the people, we've got to push back at this upcoming election. Do not vote for a major party. You will have to fill out the green ticket. So you're familiar with the way to vote. Lower house, you get a green ticket, you've got a number every box. Put the majors last. Preferably, I would put Liberal in front of Labor, that's my preference, but you do what you want. And then in the Senate, you vote 1 to 6, or you can vote below the line if you want to. I just say vote 1 to 6 above the line for minor parties only, because we definitely want more minor parties in the Senate to hold the two major parties to account. Because what we saw before with the whole, the gold bars and the RBA refusing to disclose what's going on, that is rife throughout the entire bureaucracy.
Thank you. I have a question, two questions. The first one relates to the building and construction industry.
Yeah.
Currently regulated at a state level, but the standards are decided at a federal level.
Yeah.
All right. So the first thing on that is there's a difference between what the standards say and what the states will put in. But the second part about the National Construction Code is that a huge part of the pricing of new housing comes from standards which have been applied, which don't apply to 95% of people building homes. Right. We're talking about houses which have accessibility things put in them, which are not required. So, for instance, your house being flat off the street, no steps between the inside and the outside of the house, or various handrails in position. It's set to add about $100,000 to the cost of a new build.
Yeah, sure.
So I guess, do you have policy that touches on how that NCC is managed and rolled out?
Yeah.
Okay, and then leading to my second question, more of a bureaucracy, judicial side of things. What I've found in my journey is that the government or the bureaucracy have an unlimited supply of taxpayer funds. I'm reviewing simple decisions, and those decisions where I'm self-represented, I'm facing 2 KCs, 2 King Counsel, barristers, and also the solicitors. And there are already admissions that they've made the wrong decision. So we're coming on 8 years later, and I'm still in tribunals and courts, even though I've already won my cases.
They're appealing.
They appealed and they lost. I did get a cost award on one of those appeals. That was $30,000, but government has spent on a case that they know they're wrong over $750,000 fighting me yet. Right? And this is just because the house was built to the wrong standard. So what policies does People First have in relation to, reining in that bureaucratic or judicial overreach where it's just stretched on and you're on to decade?
Okay, thanks. So, I'll answer that last question first. So, could you hear that question about what are we going to do about the judicial system? We want to bring in an independent judicial review. Now, that's not just in regards to the decision that judges may make, but the process that's involved and the time it takes. That was inspired by both myself, who got shafted by the LNP, and the judge himself overturned his own decision from 15 years earlier that said the party's constitution isn't justiciable. He said it was. 15 years later, when I presented evidence that the LNP cheated, he overruled his own decision and said it wasn't. So that he ruled that the organisations that make the laws are above the laws. Now, in regards to your situation, it sounds as though they're just spending taxpayers' money to basically shut you down and anyone else like you that wants to start, because I suspect, and tell me if I'm wrong here, that if you win this case, which it sounds like you have.
No, I won the civil side of it.
Right.
Right now, for the government side of it, they're trying to spiral the time frame.
Right. From a criminal point of view or from a civil point of view? Civil. Okay. And what will that do if they expire the time frame? They don't have to pay out. So
I would have no recourse.
Right. Okay. So that is an abuse of power. So they are using the fact that they are using taxpayers' money, correct me if I'm wrong, to basically game the system to basically starve you out. I mean, that's what the LNP did. They wouldn't let me appeal. And then when I appealed, they said, oh, it's too long. You should have appealed within 28 days. Despite the fact that they said I could appeal the State Council, when I said I am appealing the State Council, I said, oh, you should have wrote a letter and were elected to appeal. And I said I intend to appeal, told them that. I said, you should have wrote it and said you elected. You had to elect. So they make it up, right? So that is right. Lawyers are like bureaucrats. They are basically parasites that use. I'm not talking about the property conveyancing guy. I'm talking about those guys when they get up into this stuff. They will twist the law. This is why we need an independent judicial commission made up of people outside the law that are just going to go, we can see what's happening here. You are not upholding natural justice and you are using the mechanisms of the law and the fact that you can afford to do that. Yeah, they'll argue black is white. I saw that when I did my Masters of Tax Law. I thought it was about tax, but it's actually came about tax law, the way they twist the words around, like the public profit test. Anyway, we'll talk about that tonight. Look, our policy in regards to that is we want an independent judicial commission. And you'll probably see I'm doing a few more posts on calling out the judiciary. I don't trust them. So does that answer that question?
Yeah.
Now look, we don't have any policy around building codes. I know nothing about building codes. If you want to write up a set of policies for me, I'm happy to look at them if you want to sit down and explain them to me. Yeah, I can't, look, we just don't have a policy for every little nook and cranny. Just because, lack of time, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on something that I'm not an expert on, but I'm happy because we do talk to have a policy on that, especially around the national code.
Correct.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for braving the crowd and doing your tour, Joe. It's respectable. So I'm a third generation metal worker, blue collar background, and over the years I've watched, like you briefed over, assets, public assets, state assets, Australia-wide assets being sold from out under us. I witnessed my dad being made redundant to Fitter and Turner in the railway.
Yeah.
Over the years, and I want to know if you've got a plan about integrating policy or legislation about selling assets, state assets and Australian assets, and also about what your plan is moving forward about regaining the trust of the public and also regaining the manufacturing industry in Australia.
Okay, were you here earlier tonight? Yeah, okay, well look, I'm totally against privatisation of infrastructure, and I explained to you about the infrastructure bank, how that will fund the construction of new infrastructure, and then with that, the income from that new infrastructure, we can either A, buy the infrastructure back, or some of these leases, some of them are 99-year leases, so we'll all be dead when we see it happen. we will get it back. But I mean, you know, we sold the Port of Brisbane, Anna Bligh sold the Port of Brisbane for 6 times earnings, a 99-year lease. Okay, we sold CSL, you know, that's the Commonwealth Serum Laboratory that was set up after World War I, so we would have our own blood supplies and serum supplies, etc. That was privatised and sold for $200 million. We paid them we pay CSL now, which is a private company, $500 million a year just to clean the blood that you donate to Red Cross for free. That's why they make so much money, CSL. I mean, good luck to you, had shares at $2 and, you know, you still hold it, good on you, but, you know, it's just, and I mean, some of that value in the CSL share price stays because they've been able to use that contract, that monopoly they have here in Australia to fund buying other, you know, companies overseas, so that not all the share price is due to what's happening here, but look, I'm totally against it because infrastructure is a monopoly, right? The idea that selling monopolies was going to increase competition is rubbish. In order to have competition, you have to have elasticity of choice. You have to have, the other thing for competition to work is you have to actually have downside risk. So you might find this surprising given that I was in the Liberal Party, but I actually am not a believer in the free market at all. And funnily enough, those of you who have been in the Liberal Party or in the Liberal Party or are still in the Liberal Party, Robert Menzies, the founder of the Liberal Party, in his Forgotten People speech, said at the last paragraph, we should not go back to the old and selfish notions of laissez-faire. I do not believe in free markets for the same reason I don't believe in fairies in the bottom of a rose garden. They don't exist. There's only two outcomes in a market, and you're either making money or you're losing money, right? Our goal as politicians is to make sure the people that we serve are making, you know, when they go to work, make money and be able to put a roof over their head, food on the table, right? You look at a set of financial statements, the accountants in the room, it's not a freedom statement, it's a profit and loss statement, right? You're either making, you know, you've got to quantify this stuff. If it's like climate change, okay? Weather changes, how much by it, and how much is it caused by CO2? You know, they can't tell you that, right? That's where's the algorithms, can't give it to you. So, that's another reason why they don't work, because you've got to have the risk-reward paradigm, right? So I do believe in the risk-reward paradigm. I believe in those people that go to work every day risk their own capital, whether it's financial capital, human capital, you know, you're a teacher or nurse and you're putting your heart on the line, a scientist or engineer using your brain, or a carpenter or mechanic using your hands and your back. You know, that's human capital, you're a capitalist, right? That's what I believe in. And we've got to make sure those people are rewarded. That's why selling monopolies don't work. Because what happens is when these monopolies go under, who bails them out? The taxpayer. Why? Because ultimately the taxpayer expects the government to provide the free or the energy. Right? So if the energy grid was to collapse tomorrow, do you think they're going to be protesting outside Macquarie Bank's front door? No, they're going to be at the government. Right? So it's not true to say that privatising these things actually increased competition. They didn't. They just handed these things over to what I call the rent-seeking parasites in the private sector. And not all people in the private sector are rent-seeking parasites, but there is they're called lobbyists. They're very efficient at what they do, and they can milk the system. They're milking the system now through the renewable energy market for billions of dollars every year. So long story short, I don't believe that. In terms of reskilling, I was actually had a breakfast meeting this morning in Proserpine, and apparently there wasn't a military apprenticeship program that was shut down in 1991 or something. I don't know if anyone knows anything about that. 93 was it? What's that? Sorry?
Army Apprentice School.
Yeah, the Army Apprentice School. 91?
No, it's 91. They closed in 94.
Oh, 94. Right, okay. We're at that stage where we need to bring that back. And the other thing about owning our own infrastructure is, I know the old energy boards used to offer apprenticeships, you know, for tradies and stuff. You know, look, and I mean, it's ironic because the guys who are tradies today, they're generally some of the wealthier people going around because they know how to build a house and use their own hands and can stand on their own 2 feet. Good luck to them. But we need our skills. We need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet. If we get our supply lines cut off, we do have enough natural resources in this country to pay our way. Unfortunately, we won't have the skill set to actually turn those value into those resources to, you know, provide energy or whatever. So we've got to go there. We've got to get back on the tools. Yeah.
thank you very much for coming up here. I've really enjoyed what you had to say. Can I just ask one question? If they manage to bring in the CBDCs, plus the digital ID, which they're really pushing, which will lock us into the grid totally, have you got a solution or something like that?
Well, the only solution to that one, I'm afraid, so that question, did you hear that question? Ultimately, what can we do about digital ID? Digital ID has already been introduced. Okay, it was passed by the Labor government a couple of years ago. No, it's voluntary, right? But the system is set up. So at some time in the future, there's going to be a crisis where they tell you you're going to need to have a digital ID. Right now, I've been told if you're an electrician and you want to renew your licence, you're told, apparently you can get around it, but you're told that you need a digital ID. I was told I needed a digital ID for my super funds directorship, right? It's going to happen. The issue, now, but look, having said that, there's two issues for this, right? If you've got an iPhone and you're on social media, you are being tracked, right? Google knows where you are every minute of the day, right? And they know what you're searching for on ads. You see these ads come up, it's like, hang on, I just Googled that. They know what you're doing. The next step will be the coercion side of things, and that ties in with the CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency, CBDC. The only way you're going to stop that is to get numbers in Parliament and push back on this stuff. I mean, you know, the idea that the spending habits, and I mean, they're monitored already by the banks as it is, but not to a great deal of detail, enough detail that's already worrying. We're going to have to stop it. But the only way to do that is through numbers. Yeah. And we're up against it because, you know, what people are like, they're apathetic and they won't know until it's too late. Yeah.
So I just wanted to follow on for that, but I do want to ask my own question about self-managed super funds. The NDIS are actually forcing people in June this year or July this year that if you access Croda, their systems, you must have a digital ID to log on. So, and that's one of the largest in, you know, employment in Australia now. So they're really going to do that with NDIS, DVO, My Aged Care. So it's going to be a whole, I suppose, you know, with the vaccines type of situation, you know, they're going to do a big swoop on that. So it is sort of here now, and they are coercing people, but it is voluntary. It's about a matter about it's working out a way to opt out and still function and still, you know, be in your business or earn a living.
Okay, so that's a statement.
That was a statement, yes. So my question is about self-managed super funds. So I follow a lady by Catherine Austin Fitz, who was part of the Bush government, who uncovered over $1 trillion back then of money laundering. She's also gone on to uncover that little superannuation in the US and the super in Europe has been stolen, and she openly states that in her interviews and podcasts and everything like that. So firstly, I want to know whether you know, is that true? And secondly, we invest over $1 trillion of our super money into Europe. So then is our super stolen as well?
Okay, I can't answer that. I don't know if the money's been stolen, but if it's not stolen now, it will probably happen one day. And the reason for that is it's no conspiracy theory, it's simple mathematics. I was born in 1970, I started work in 1991, superannuation started in 1992. When I retire, say at 65, you know, something like that, I will have almost 45 years worth of superannuation in my account, and an entire generation of us 70 drops will be starting to withdraw our super either as a lump sum, either when we retire or when we pass away. So that means we're going to be pulling out 45 years worth of super in one hit. You therefore need 45 years of people, 45 other people putting in 1 year's worth of superannuation. Now, Treasury have already acknowledged that in about 15 to 20 years, in the next couple of decades, withdrawals are going to start to exceed contributions. They've been getting away with it now because they keep lifting the rate of superannuation. So as I said before, it started at 2%, it's gone to 12%, and the immigration figure is also being added to it. Now they're trying to get even kids under 16 or under 18, I think it is. If you're a kid under 16 or 18, you don't have to pay super until you turn 18. they're trying to, even if you're doing 10 hours a week and you're earning $180, they're trying to get 12% out of the kids, right? Like they're just, these guys are, parasites, the same parasites that run renewals. There is going to be a liquidity crunch in the superannuation sectors, and actually, as a matter of fact, some of the smaller super funds have already been taken over by other bigger super funds for that very reason, is that they haven't managed their cash flow properly, and that withdrawals have started to exceed contributions. Now, that's going to become a real problem because super funds own a lot of big liquid assets, so they're not going to be able to keep up with it. So it's going to be interesting in 15 to 20 years' time. And the other real red flag in this is that they want to tax unrealised gains. Now, I'm not against charging 30 cents on investments over $3 million. I mean, I'm not there yet, but if I was, I'd happily pay 30 cents because they're at $3 million in super. I'm doing all right. But not unrealised gains. You cannot tax unrealised gains. That will be a nightmare. The fact that Treasury are so, as an accountant I can tell you it would be an administrative nightmare. The fact that Treasury are so disconnected from reality, divorced from reality as my mum would say, is really, really worrying. And if they can think like that with unrealised gains, they can think like that one of these days there'll be an emergency and it will just go back in a general revenue. That is why, as I always say, raise your own children, save for your own retirement. I mean, by the way, what did superannuation used to be called? It's another word for superannuation. Savings, exactly. What did COVID used to be called? And what did climate change used to be called? Weather. See how all these Orwellian terms are coming in, and but they're all sort of based around, this is the government, we're saving you, but they're not, they're really controlling you. So anyway, I'll finish that up.
Can I just say one thing? They're actually making it really hard now if you want to get a self-managed super fund, like the ATO. I mean, I did mine 3 years ago, but I had a 20-minute drilling by someone at the ATO to make sure that I was confident and capable to manage my own super fund.
No. God forbid you take control of your own money. Actually, and that's just one other thing I did touch on briefly. So one of our policies, we want to make superannuation voluntary. Two other policies. One, that the board of the superannuation funds who now control $3 trillion in capital, you have to elect them. All right, so they get selected at the moment. So $3 trillion being controlled by about 15 to 25 super funds that we don't know the name of. And those people cannot vote in AGMs unless they get proxies from each member. That's entirely impractical, but you shouldn't be casting votes in companies' AGMs unless you've asked that to the person who really owns the money, how they want you to vote. Because you know banks now aren't lending the coal companies and stuff. That's all coming from the boards that are controlled by the super funds. Is that two more? Is that it? Oh no, is that it? Just, two more.
Yeah, sorry.
Two, great.
Sorry.
Jared, elephant in the room. Last time I saw you in Townsville, you're very defensive, or you appeared to be very defensive in regard to your political party in regards to the COVID vaccine. It seems Malcolm Roberts, yourself and many others are just talking about the subject. Many people are suffering both from grief and vaccine injuries and just want justice and accountability. We cannot gain closure unless this happens. Frankly, we are sick and tired of waiting. Unlike Port Hedland and other councils, our own Townsville City Council refuses to even discuss this and have any chance of investigation through them on this issue, and no one seems to be doing anything but talk. When is something going to be done about this, as many people are still dying and suffering and having adverse, or I shouldn't say adverse, I should say actual injuries from the vaccines?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Nice. Well, I didn't just talk, I actually withheld my vote from the party, and that resulted in me losing my pre-selection. Okay, so I didn't vote with the Liberal Party for 6 months, the last 6 months of the Morrison government. I'm not sure if those of you remember me from October 21, I wrote a letter to Scott Morrison, and I said to him, if you don't stop the rollout of the vaccine, withdraw the mandates, provide a better compensation scheme for those who are injured, open up the borders, and there were two others. There were 5 conditions, and I posted it about 31st of October 2021. It's on my Facebook page. Actually, I posted it just a couple of weeks ago again. So I lost my job in the Liberal Party as a result of that. Okay? I then went to court because they cheated to get rid of me I busted them, and then I spent $600,000 of my own money to fight them in court, okay, which I lost, and all that showed was that the system's corrupt, okay, so I put myself on the line there. I don't just talk about it, I ask questions that have exposed to thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not millions of Australians, just how corrupt our health system is, okay, but you are correct, I do talk, and why do I talk? Because I'm a parliamentarian, I am not a member of the executive. We have 3 levels of government in this country, the judiciary, the executive and the parliament. Okay, I am a parliamentarian, I'm not a member of the executive, i.e. a minister. Okay, and I was quickly booted when it showed that I was actually going to take a stand and put the people first. I have then gone on, because I retired at 44, I do not need to be doing this job. I've got 3 beautiful children at home who are 13, 11 and 8. Who aren't being read to tonight, and my wife has to do the run around from 5:30 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night because I'm here and not at home. I'm here because I'm fighting for the Australian people, whether it's to do with COVID vaccine injuries, whether it's to do with the fact they cannot afford a home, whether it's to do with infected blood, whether it's to do with Lyme disease, or one of the other many issues that people are being shafted with, because I love my country and I will fight. And I've committed to running this party for another 3 years, at least, even if I don't get up, so that we can establish a party that has the actual professionalism and the intelligence and the polish to start to win the argument, okay? Because unlike, so I'll get up there and I will talk about why that vaccine is unsafe. I will talk about transfaction. I'll talk about the extension of poly A tail. I'll talk about the use of methyl pseudouridine instead of the traditional natural uridine. And I will get up there and I will talk for 15 minutes about it and why it is unsafe. I've exposed the head, Mark, his name was Mark someone, the head of the Royal College of GPs, who didn't even know what immune printing was. I've exposed the TGA for not having a clue about those vaccines, okay? But I will get up there and I'll talk about the detail. I've had other minor party members, I'll talk for 15 minutes on it. Pauline will get up there and talk, she will follow me up and she'll say I'm not putting that shit in my body. That is not enough, to change people's argument. What I want to do is actually use my intelligence, and I have got intelligence and I'm confident to use it, so we can win the argument. Because that's what politics is about. Because we will never win the argument, or we will never change things until we win the argument, and then once we win the argument, we then get enough followers, like all of you here in the room tonight, to start kicking these major parties out. Because I'd hop on my horse and ride off into the sunset very happily, right? I'm very happily married with 3 beautiful children. And you know, my father's 90 in June this year. He's been out there caught in the floods, as is my brother. He shot 5 cattle yesterday, right? I'd rather be out there helping him pull those cattle out of the bog than be here. Okay, so I'm fighting for you, and you're right, all I can do is talk, but I will continue to talk until I change enough minds so we get the numbers that we take our country and make it great again.
Who do you suggest voting for on Dawson and the Queensland Senate more broadly? And what's more effective at getting young people to vote? Consider parties like yours, because most are pretty stupidly loyal to Labor and Greens.
Okay, a couple of things. We may have a candidate for Dawson. It's touch and go because I just met him this morning, so it's a last minute thing. The reason why we do want people to run in the lower house is that the green card will often influence the white card, so people will want to know who your lower house member is, and if you explain to them, so the green card being the House of Representatives, so you'll take 2 tickets when you vote, so we may have a candidate for Dawson, but we'll know next week. That is the first question. In the Senate, we will be putting a 1 to 6 or 7 card out there, where we'll be preferencing the other minor parties, including One Nation. I believe I won't be preferencing any majors in the Senate because we will get 15% of the vote amongst the minors, which will definitely get us a quota. As for the young people, I've got a bloke, there's a bloke called Alistair that goes to Wollongong University that has set up a TikTok account called Senator Rennick. And I've been sharing a few of his posts this week on my Facebook page just because I've been travelling I haven't had time to actually do my own post because I've been too busy dodging potholes on the Bruce Highway and stressing out about it. Am I going to get back to lodge my return next Tuesday? So you've seen a bit. Look, I don't think young people are stupid at all. Some of them are misguided because of what they've been taught. I'll never give up on our youth because we have to fight for them. If I didn't have my children, I'd probably be an alcoholic drinking in a bar as a foreign expat. Like I had 7 years living overseas. Ironically enough, when I started to study biochemistry in my early 30s, that's why I had a bit of an understanding about biochemistry. I'd had 7 years overseas, so I left home at 23, thinking I was going overseas for a couple of years and I'd be home by the time I was 25. And I went there's a really good scene. Does anyone watch South Park? Where Cartman gets, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I think of it every time. So I went overseas, I had 6 months backpacking in Africa. Now what was interesting about that backpacking in Africa, I went to see the gorillas in the mist in Rwanda. So we went and I was on an overland truck trip. I don't know if any of you guys ever did an overland truck trip through Africa in the 90s or whatever. It was the thing to do there for a while. And after that, we then climbed Karasimbi, which was the third highest mountain in Africa and the highest mountain in Rwanda on the Rwanda-Congolese border. And we came down that Sunday night, and as you do when you're in your early 20s and you're travelling, we went out drinking. Anyway, we were told, these soldiers came up to us at this African bar that was basically dirt and 50-cent beers that was huge. So we didn't care about the dirt because beer was so cheap. So these guys, these Rwandan soldiers said to us, look, you have to go home at 7 o'clock, there's a curfew. But they said, since you're guests, you can stay out and invited to buy us beers as well. So anyway, we bought them beers because it was like literally nothing. We were happy to do that, it's all part of the experience. So anyway, we got an armed military escort home at about 10:30 that night with a few under us. But that was the Sunday night. By Wednesday, the war had broken out. So we left Rwanda on the Tuesday, the war broke out on the Wednesday. And that's a French-speaking country. But what's interesting about that was the fact that, I'm sure if you were living there and you knew what was going on, maybe you knew war was about to break out. We certainly had no idea war was about to break out. And it's an important lesson in how things can suddenly change. It's like the COVID crisis. Really, it came from nowhere and it caused so much untold damage. But just another story on that. So I had 2 years living in London. I got to London, had not quite 2 years. Then I got a phone call one day saying, how do you want to job travelling the world? And I thought, getting paid to travel the world. I thought, So I got a job based out of Amsterdam where I had about 3 years living in 5-star hotels, going around buying companies on behalf of this other company. Inevitably, as you do when you're an expat, I don't know if you've got any expats in the room, you do end up drinking too much because there's nothing else to do. And then I went backpacking after that for 2 years. But when I was backpacking, I went through a place called, I came home, I went to 85 countries, but then I came home from Moscow through all the stans. So I went through Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, and then went across into Iran. So when I went to Iran, I wanted to go and see these Elamite ruins. So the Elamites were an ancient tribe in the Middle East around about the same time as the Sumerians. So they were one of the first, ancient people to start writing. So they had one of these old ziggurats, if that's the right way to pronounce it. How do you pronounce it? Ziggurats, okay. So I wanted to go and see it, but I'd never seen one, and I couldn't get to Iraq thanks to the sanctions. I still want to get to Iraq one day. But anyway, long story short, I flew down, so it's really cheap to fly in Iran. So I flew from Iran down to a place called Bushehr, which is close to the ruins. But as you do after you've been 80-odd countries, you tend to get pretty reckless about how you travel. So I arrived in this town at 12 o'clock with no booking, and I was waiting for my backpack to come off the carousel. And this Iranian bloke came up to me and he said, I had a Lonely Planet book out and I was reading it. He goes, where are you staying? And I said, I'm going to stay here. And he said, that place is shut down. And he said, but if you like, you can stay with me for the night. And, you've got to take a chance, right? And he had a really thick American accent, so I thought he must have been one of these Americans that this was in 99. So I figured he must have grew up in the States and got kicked out by when the Shah, Alatolia overthrew the Shah. So anyway, it turns out that's exactly what he was. But anyway, on the way home, we're in his little Suzuki Jeep, and he goes, I'm just going to go to a mate's place before we go home. We start going through these back streets of this town with mud walls, you know, the walls got mud walls and everything. I thought, oh my God, what have I done now? Anyway, so he pulls up at his mate's place, we get out, we go into this room, like it's just a concrete room, concrete walls, 4 walls and just Persian carpets on the floor. There's 12 men in there, sitting there smoking opium. And that's what they do. So in Iran, because you can't drink, they all smoke opium. So I sat there for the next 2 hours thinking, oh my God, you know, what happens if the Iranian Revolutionary Guard come in? You know, am I going to get their head chopped off? Or, you know, what happens if these guys make a pass on me? Whatever, you know. Anyway, needless to say, after 2 hours he gets up, says, right, we're going. So we went back to his place. Turns out his wife was away for the weekend while she went and smoked his dope. And then he walked away the rest of the night listening to American music. Needless to say, I was sort of sleeping with one eye open. But then the next morning we woke up, you know, he eventually went to bed for an hour or two, he woke up, he said, I'll show you my business, and he ran a bitumen business. You know, and he, you know, like the house was very Americanised. I mean, a lot of houses were Americanised, but it was a real lesson. You know, and this is why, and I spoke about in my maiden speech about, I hate the Milo minder benders. If you've read Catch 22, you'll know who the Milo minder benders are. They're basically the warmongers who, the industrial military complex, as Eisenhower called them. And if Eisenhower, by the way, if Eisenhower says there's a deep state, there's a deep state. Eisenhower was, as you know, led the D-Force, the D-Day invasion. He was head of Columbia University for 7 years. He was head of NATO, Supreme Allied Commander in NATO, he was US President for 2 terms. If he's telling you there was a deep state back in 1961, then you can only imagine how big it is today, right? Like, so if anyone tells you you're a conspiracy theorist for believing that there's a deep state, and by the way, I love the United States, I just hate the deep state that's infiltrated their government, that uses the American soldiers, who, like our soldiers that signed up to defend their country, are actually used as an offence force to defend the wealth of the banks, right? But you know, it's a real reflection on the fact that we do live in a beautiful world. There is only one race, the human race, and we shouldn't judge people. Because Iran's demonised, right? Iran was a democratic country until 1953. Alan Dulles, probably the same guy that Kennedy sacked a decade later, was the bloke that orchestrated the coup in Iran in 1953 that overthrew a democratically elected government. I found out about that in 2013. Because 60 years after that, they had to release everything, and it was admitted that the CIA were paying students to protest, right, a bloke called Kermit Roosevelt Jr. And what happened 1 year after that? Exactly the same thing. The CIA overthrew a democratically elected government in Ukraine. So, you know, I hate the deep state, but I do love the world we live in, and having travelled the world, you know, I just think of all those wonderful places I went to, and all those human beings that are like you or me. You know, I sat in many bus stations and train stations and just watched the world go around, and you'd see mothers with their children. And there was a great speech, I quoted it. You know, Kennedy actually spoke in his chance for peace. Oh, was it his? No, that was Eisenhower. He did a speech just before he was shot, where he didn't want to go to the Vietnam War. He talks about if a Russian and couple, family, parents were sitting in the bus stop with American parents, what would they be talking about? And he said they'd be talking about their common interests, the cost of living, their children, their schooling, you know, those sort of things. He said, you know, there's a common interest out there, and as we all hate our governments, we all hate the politicians, and we need to remember that. Anyway, I don't know how I got on with that, but anyway.
Overriding the St. accent. My question's maybe a bit more localised, but you were speaking earlier about generating capital funds inside Australia, which as a tradie I absolutely love. I personally think that offering a solution to young people that provides them with a sense of worth through trade skills and not necessarily a university degree that they're going to pay off for the rest of their life and then oversaturate an already saturated market of degrees and then not be able to even get a job with $150,000 plus of debt. Is the way forward. So you would think that someone like me would get excited when, and I'll use an older example because I was coming out of the army at this stage, so I wasn't directly involved in the project, so I can talk about it as an outsider without breaking commercial in confidence. But everyone cheered when we got the stadium because we thought, cool, here comes a massive injection of cash into the local Townsville community, and as we all know, you spend $5 here, that goes to the local news agents, that goes to the local grocer, and $5 suddenly becomes $50 in the local economy. That's how we grow money at our level. But, so I'm an AV tech, I'm an AV designer, I'm one of the few people in Townsville that actually does the coding level of design. There's probably one other person that I know in North Queensland that can do my level of work. Do you think we get any look in on these jobs? No. Brisbane, JVG's based in Sydney. Wasn't even in the Queensland state. But how are we going to work around this? Because if you generate the money, that's cool, but what I don't want to see is it just get funneled back into some company that then takes the profits offshore.
Yeah. Look, Western Australia's got a really good thing called royalties for regions, and I think we definitely need that here in Queensland. I mean, it's something you'll need to take up with your local members. You've now got 3 LNP state members here in Townsville. You know, take it up with them. But the fact that it's AV Jennings, because it's Sydney, because Sydney is close to Canberra. So those guys would get in a car at 8 o'clock in the morning, be there by 11, winning those contracts. But you make a very, very good point. That would be in the procurement area.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there needs to be some sort of policy where you know, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, the preference needs to be local content. There needs to be a local content preference.
So a lot of the time what's happening is they're going to a consulting firm, and that consulting firm is then pushing that to a contractor as the preferred vendor.
Yeah.
And then as a result of that, and I'm talking projects $250 million plus at the federal level, even at the state level with things like the hospital, and once again I know, because I know people in the industry, I probably know things I shouldn't. But things are not even going to the tender stage, so how can a local council company then lead into a contract like that when it's already been awarded to someone based out of Brisbane or Sydney?
Yeah. Look, what I can't comment on the specifics of that particular contract.
I don't want to talk specifically, I'm talking more general term.
So there was a really good one, I've posted this a few times actually, it's so outrageous, that some company based out of Cyprus was paid $100 million to provide masks and gowns here in Australia throughout that COVID pandemic. And I've actually spoken to a few people with ventilators and stuff where the Australian guys were overlooked, the foreigners. And yet again, it's like, I don't know, we haven't got the fire ant issue up here at the moment, but there's something very wrong. The fire ant issue in South East Queensland has been very badly managed, and rather than actually spray identified fire nests, they decided to start aerial spraying over areas where there isn't any fire ants, right? Now, I'm not saying what they're using is safe, but if it's not safe, at the very least, you know, spray it just where you need it, not where, I mean, it may not be safe. If you know, you've got to get rid of fire ants, okay, there may be a little bit of unsafe element to it. Spray it where you need it, but I can only think the only reason why they suddenly are spraying everywhere but where the fire ants are is that they're trying, you know, they're a hammer looking for a nail. I mean, this is the bureaucracy, right? So it's like COVID, they will not let it go. There's another variant around the corner, we've got to prepare for the next pandemic. We hadn't had a pandemic since the Spanish flu. You know why we hadn't had a pandemic since the Spanish flu? What's that? No, because they discovered penicillin, right? What kills you is the secondary bacterial infection, not the virus. They banned the use of azithromycin. You know, this is one of the tragedies of the ivermectin story, actually, and the hydroxychloroquine. People don't realise they also banned certain antibiotics that we use for older people who had secondary bacterial infections. Now, when you had, like, when they let those people in the aged care die in Victoria in 2020, that was murder in my view. That was because Dan Andrews did not want those older people going into the state hospitals because then they would have been on his watch. So he locked them up inside those aged care centres, didn't give them the antibiotics, and they died in aged care because then they could blame the federal government by doing the old finger blaming. But look, I guess my point is that there is just, this is where you come back to, there is just a lack of integrity in the system about doing the right thing, being cheap, looking after locals. It's out of control. But anyway, look, I better wrap it up because I said I was going to finish at 8:30. So thanks very much for coming tonight. Thanks very much for sweating profusely and putting up with me. I really appreciate it. If you would like to help out, it's www.peoplefirstparty, that's the old one, peoplefirstparty.au, and you can click on volunteers to hand out how to vote cards on the day. We'd really appreciate your support there. And just look, as I said before, the world is a beautiful place. Politics can be very toxic. Don't let it get you down, because we do live in a lucky country. We and we still are a great country. We just need to slightly change the rudder and get us heading back in the right direction. So hang on in there, keep fighting, and thanks very much.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly always find it informative seeing the good senator in town. And look, it's hard to not have a bit of a soft spot for the fella, since every time he's been in Townsville, the last 4 visits, he's always had time to have a yarn to us here at the North Queensland Freedom Network, which to me speaks volumes. As I was saying last night, I can't remember if the mic was on or not, but I said it. I don't know that anybody heard it or not, but there's a lot of disgusting politicians out and around who won't take the time to talk to us. Some, even my, supposed representative in council here has been known to give me dirty looks when walking past in the supermarket. Of course, I wave and say hello and, make their pain a little bit more awkward for them, So, how else do you treat an asshole? You give them a good wipe, don't you? So, thanks, Susie. Always got time for you. Any time I'll say g'day happily, even though you can't seem to do the same thing. But anyway, that aside, we need good people like the senator. I've seen a couple of comments there, people saying that he seems to be winning you over and whatnot. Look, I think of, most of the politicians I've spoken to, he seems really genuine, really down to earth. I mean, either that or he's one of the greatest liars I've ever seen. So he certainly got my attention. I'm not telling you who I'm voting for, but I certainly always have the time of day for him. Fellow Whiffen there wanted to know, I own my own home. How do I get proof of ownership? Excuse my confusion. That is the ultimate question. At the end of the day, we're supposed to rely on the digital accounts that are being put on, and we don't even know who holds that digital account. If you want more information on that, just give me a second. I'll just bring it up over here. You want to go back through some of the videos. I got Len Harris's presentation on this quite some time ago. It is one of the more popular videos on Rumble because it's one of the older ones. I can't remember if it's gone to Facebook. There's no point uploading it now anyway to Facebook, because we've got after 30 days, your videos disappear on Facebook now. Just another reason to, for me to not like Facebook. Look, for the handful of, we got 20 odd people watching on Facebook who are the main commenters. You guys are awesome. But if you want to go to find older videos, you're gonna have to go elsewhere now. Facebook have forced that upon us. Just give me a second to bring this up. I believe it was called do we own our own property? Because that's the $1 million question is, it seemed a lot of it has happened through Queensland because we have no upper house, so to speak of. Why that happened, that's a whole nother story. We've had Len Harris on a couple of times. You could probably just search Len Harris and find it. I should do that myself, really. But the initial video that really sort of sparked that, where is it? Come on, I'm back through that many videos. Is the one you want to watch, because Len really lays it out straight in a very simple, straightforward manner, so that even the more simplest of us can comprehend the layers of shit that they've done. And it was interesting because I was talking to Darren from Know Your Rights as I met Len. I met Len and had a yarn to him and whatnot, and then had a yarn to Darren. He's like, I spoke to Len the other day. He was telling me, what a great bloke you are and all that. I'm like, it's always good to receive that kind of feedback. But it turns out Darren had a part of the puzzle, and Len had another part of the puzzle, and they sat down and they put it all together. And now Len's running with that one pretty well. So where is it? How far back is it? Oh yeah, that's right. I remember meeting Hoodie. He was a good bloke. a lot of good videos back here. You know, the wind farms one is a huge video. If you haven't seen Wind Farms, a man-made disaster, I highly recommend you share the hell out of that one. Every time you see some greeny idiot carry on about how good these things are, you know, you should show them that video. It's one of those things I tend to do as often as I can to, you know, inform and educate people. It's got nothing to do with, you know, upsetting them. If they get upset with, you know, knowledge being thrown at them, then that's on them. But where is this video? Oh, here it is. 14 pages back on Rumble. Those who are looking for it. Share screen. This is the video you're looking for. I'll have this little title on it here. You know, do you own property? Own your property? Check it out. As you can see, it's one of the more popular ones with, you know, coming up to nearly 3,000 views, which is pretty cool. So, you know, it's not as big as some of these ones over here, that's for sure. But, you know, look, this is little old Australia, so, you know, and little old North Queensland. So 3,000 views is pretty good. So to answer that question for Whiffen, you want to go and check out this video. That's the way to go. 14 pages back on Rumble on the North Queensland Freedom Network, because this was before I was part of Cafe Lockout. So I don't know that I've uploaded it to Cafe Lockout. And it's a lot quicker to go through the North Queensland Freedom Network pages. It's only 14 pages back here. If that had gone to Cafe Lockout, it could be, you know, 50, 60, maybe even 100 pages back. So, you know, there's a lot of content, a lot of videos going up there. So I hope that helps, Whiffen. I don't have all the answers for this one, but I do understand that Len was taking this to court at one point. And just before it was about to go to court, he decided, hang on, I better stop, because he realized that there was even more that he hadn't figured out. And if he doesn't do this properly, it could set a dangerous precedent that prevents us from going at the government again. So he's taking the plans to, I'm not sure exactly, we'll have to catch up with Len at another point in the future to find out where he's at with that. But as last I heard, he was reforming the plan and doing a little bit more digging into what's going on, because it's just layers and layers of shit. So I think this is about an hour and a half presentation. Yeah, an hour and 20 minutes. Len goes in and explains this, and you need that hour and 20, and apparently even more, to figure out the layers of shit that these politicians have done. You know, how nefarious the plans were. It's up to you to decide. Is it just a case of the fact that a lot of these people that we're electing into office are complete and utter idiots, and just, oh yeah, cool, you're offering me a kickback if I sign this, no worries? Is it just that mindlessly stupid? I don't know, but you know, I'll let you make up your own mind on that one. So I hope that helps there. And thank you for Leander there. So as soon as I put up the comment, hey, make sure you're liking, sharing, and commenting this. Leander here had already done it, and that's good work. So thank you very much. You should be more like lovely Leander here and share this stuff out so people can, you know, get a bit more information, informed choice. That's what it's all about. You know, particularly as we, you know, getting closer to flush the turd on the third day, you know, we want to have better options. And you know, I'm definitely in support of Senator Rennick on these options. He's doing a great job as far as I'm concerned. The answers, the way he answers these questions, you know, is just amazing. You know, really liked his little bit about the deep state there. I think I'll do a little snippet video on that one. That's a good one. So we got people first party.au. We punch that one in and we bring that up. So, you know, at the moment, they've got their team going, you know, and I think it'd be great to see some of your faces on here, don't you? If you've been inspired by what the old mate's saying, you know, you might want to get on, because it's going to take a lot more than these people to do what the good senator mentions in this video, is get enough good people in the parliament to make the changes. You know, like you said, you know, it can't be just him and Pauline and Malcolm. Like, there's just 3 people versus however many there are. So, you know, some 70 to 80 or something, somewhere in those numbers that they've got to go against. You know, we need to start voting more good people in. And like I've said at the end of so many of these podcasts, it's time to go and have a look in that mirror and ask yourself, right, am I that person? Can I make that change? Have I had enough of this, enough to go and give it a go myself? come on, jump in, give him a hand. If you're looking and you're saying, oh, well, hang on, my area is not in there. Maybe it's because you haven't put your hand up yet. Jump in there and give him a hand. I'll do whatever I can to help you here if you decide to do that. And hey, maybe it's not people's first. Maybe people first isn't right for you. Maybe you want to go for the Great Australia Party. Maybe you want to jump in with Clive or something. If you're shy of a buck, that might be a way to do it. I'm not telling you which way you should go. Make your decision for yourself. Maybe you just want to run it as an independent and do it yourself. How much information and insight are you going to gain from getting in there and doing that? I'm not in the right position to do it myself, and I think this network and what I'm doing here is a lot more important at this particular juncture in time, because how else would everybody gotten a chance to hear what the senator said if I wasn't doing this? So and as people commented, there was a lot of the place was packed, and there were a few people there that unfortunately couldn't get in to see it. Well, thanks to the North Queensland Freedom Network, they can see it now. So that's why I do what I do there. So a new policy, no one under the age of 18 can vote. So therefore, you have to have been in the country for at least 18 years, 10 of which you must be a citizen before you can vote. That way, you actually have a stake in the game and not electing who let you in. Great idea there. By Jane, I'm guessing that's how you say it. It's a unique way of spelling the word. I like it. Brilliant idea. Why not pitch that to him? As you've seen in that question answers thing, they don't have a policy for everything. Write one up, suggest it to Rennick, or even one of your other freedom people. They might take that policy on board. Great for you to suggest it here, and currently we're I can guarantee we've got over 300 people, probably more once I start looking at the channels that are not coming up. But all those people see it, but tomorrow it'll be thousands of people have seen this. That's a great idea, but has it gone to the right place? So yeah, send that to the senator. He might actually think it's a great idea. Personally, having sat down with the Indigenous tribes and whatnot, and I was having this discussion with somebody the other day, from their point of view, at least, the tribal people I've spoken to, if you're born in this country, then you are part of the country. If you're not born in this country, that's a different story. Personally, I think unless you're born in this country, you shouldn't be voting. That's just my thoughts. You can come here and we'll give you, basic, starter entry fee citizenship, but that'd really solve the Labor Party, scenario, as you see, as we're seeing right now, where they're just importing as many people as they can and then saying, vote for Labor. We're the ones who got you in. They're importing their votes. We've seen Biden try to do the same bloody thing. That is just insane. It should not be allowed. You should not be allowed to import people because your own citizenry hate you. Like, that's just nuts. And it says a lot about how much the Australian people have turned away from the Labor Party, where they've got to import, over 1 million people just so they can get a freaking vote. That's bad, So personally, I love your suggestion. 18 to 10 years is probably a nice, fair compromise to mine. You're not born here, you shouldn't get a vote. Again, I'd be curious if some of the Indigenous brothers and sisters that I've spoken to, what do you guys think? I'd love to hear your opinion on that one too. I think we need to go back to Canberra. Well, I started this comment because, hey, look, if you didn't see Friday's podcast, you probably should. There is a gathering happening in Canberra on Wednesday in support of Rod Cullerton and Dr. I can't believe I've forgotten her name again. A doctor, who are both fighting against, the way the borders were locked down and our medical choices. And if these things go through, so as I understand, they're not actually going to court to try these things on the Wednesday. It's a will the High Court hear it sort of thing. So it's important that a lot of people sort of get behind that and let the High Court and, know that Australia is watching and we want these things to be heard in the High Court. So, Wayne, you want to go back to Canberra? This is your week, my friend. I've looked at it myself. I don't know that I can actually get there because of my location. There's no direct flight to Canberra from out this way, and it's going to be bouncing me all over the place, and I can't really afford to, just because of current circumstances, I can't really do anything, not so much, monetary scenario, but it is linked to a monetary scenario. I just don't want to get into it right now. But I don't see myself being able to get there, unfortunately. Just too far away. It's like if you're in Victoria or Sydney or something, you guys can drive. Me, straight. It'll take me 3 days to drive there. Sips, ladies and gentlemen. So, there's obviously the list of policies you can check on the website and whatnot. And hey, you want to join it? Become a member, go for it. It's all there if that's something you're keen to do. I just thought I'd have a quick bit of a look at some of the things Troy's been posting, because I don't know if you noticed the back of his head there. He was there the other day, had a bit of a yarn to him. I think it's a good thing he's got here. Is it time to consolidate the functions of TAL and SPNQ? Look how much money, Townsville Enterprise received funding in 2024 to 25 tenders over 200K, including a partnership agreement of 333K in October 2024 and an event acquisition of 1.3 million. Now, what's relevant to this is, as we've seen, Ken was there at the end there, the guy who I had to chase his bloody logo around. Thanks for that, Ken. Really appreciate it, man. I hope you appreciated the amount of time it took me to do that, because, normally with something like that, if it's just a big face, you can just sort of go motion track, off you go, and the computer does a lot of things. But because the hand's moving in front of it and the microphone, it was a nightmare. I had to go through and watch you frame by frame, man. And I've learned a lot about the way you move. I can tell you that much. But when you look at what he was saying, we've got a stadium up here, and people in Sydney are getting jobs that people here locally should be getting. How are we looking after our people here? And a lot of this is coming from places like TAL and the Townsville City Council and all this other. And you go onto the TAL website and you see just how dodgy this is. Let's just put that up, for instance. Townsville Enterprise. And I think we need an audit on this joint, to be honest. I think there's some shady shit going on here myself, and of course we've got King of Shady in here as well. So is it in the membership? Well, there's a lot to go through in this website, but fundamentally, when we go down here, you look at all the partnerships. Townsville City Council, Townsville, and because of what they're doing, major partners. You understand tourism and airport makes sense, but the Townsville Bulletin, mining scenarios. So everybody who's a full-blown leftist and hates mining but supports mining, the strip mining the planet for batteries and all that other stuff, that makes a hell of a lot of sense, doesn't it? Have a look at the partnerships here at TAL. They're telling us about this greener, sustainable future. Well, of course, they're hooked up with mining. How do you think they're going to get this alleged sustainability without strip mining the planet? But the fact that they're in with the Townsville Bulletin and they're all linked. It's like a little gang, of corporations. It's dodgy as all hell, as far as I'm concerned. I think this place should definitely be checked into and looked up. They say it's a not-for-profit organization, right? Is the official regional tourism and economic development body of Townsville, North Queensland region, right? So, and of course, they're encompassing themselves into Burdekin, Hinchinbrook, Charters Towers, including Central, Great Barrier Reef, and all these other places, Palm Island, Magnetic Island, which is, council running into the ground, Magnetic Island. I haven't gone over to Palm Island, but we may be doing something looking into that in the future. But that's another story. So, look, going through this website, of course, you see Liam Mooney, who, who's, as far as I'm concerned, their family should be investigated pretty heavily too, because of the associations they have with various other little groups around, which is why this stuff is very relevant here. So TAL, also known as Townsville, North Queensland, or Townsville Enterprise, in the event and tourism space, promotes the regions, as we just stated. Smart Precinct, which is another big money laundering operation from what I can see. Why are our rates paying for this? We've got turds going down the main drag here because our council, whose job it is to look after the sewage system, haven't done that properly. So thanks heaps for the uselessness of that. As we watch the sewer grates overflow every time it rains at the moment, it's disgusting. You know, I'm going to drive through that. You know, there was another one, I think, somewhere along the Strand. There was sewage flowing in, you know, and little kids were around and whatnot. And where was council? Nowhere to be seen. You know, Alan was telling me about that the other day. He was trying to get some stuff sorted out there. You know, he's standing there on the side of the street trying to keep kids away from it. You know, where and get while waiting for council to come through. It was ridiculous. You know, so and they're pumping money into these smart precinct crap. You know, we don't want it. I didn't vote for that. Or you didn't even get asked. They just do it. You know, they're wasting so much money on this stuff. You know, given overlapping objectives of geographic focus of TAL and SPNQ would a merger into NQROC provide more comprehensive and collective results for the region. This consolidation would enable each region to have better representation and collective outcomes. So, I mean, this is why we voted for Troy, because he's got some pretty good ideas for saving us money, you know, but these people don't want that, because that means they don't get to funnel as much into their own pockets in some way, shape or form, I would assume. You know, we just need a chamber of commerce, says Clinton. You know, at the end of the day, we don't need all these tiny little groups hanging around fleecing us of our rates. We need to be lowering costs. You know, Townsville City Council is hemorrhaging money, and you know, obviously their only solution is to keep, you know, put in parking meters and raise our rates. These people disgust me beyond measure as they continuously give themselves more pay rises and whatnot. And you know, and it speaks for itself. Should the Townsville City Council be placed into administration? You know, it's a pretty overwhelming 95% say yes, they should, which would be good, because all them councillors would lose their jobs, as far as I'm concerned. And as Troy was saying the other day, he'd lose his job too, and he's the one suggesting it. So to me, that's a man with integrity, as far as I'm concerned. So I think we should all be hitting up our local members on this one, and you know, why waste your time with the council? They just ignore you anyway. That just shows you what a disgusting system we have in place. So it's time to take it to the state and to the federal members and go, we want them removed. You know, it's time to go back to the polls. They should, you know, and if they're so good at their jobs, they can run for their job again. You know, SIPs. Also on from that video, you may recognize there's a few comments that come through. Sorry, I haven't been doing the comments. I'm trying to run everything myself today. Stop sharing. Where is it? Banners, many assets. So you might remember this lady asked a question. It wasn't obviously made public at that time, but she lost her husband to the jabs, which is why she said what she said and why she's a little bit passionate about it. That was a hard video to do. That was probably one of the hardest ones I've worked on so far. You know, lovely lady, and you know, if you want to know a little bit more about, you know, what she went through and how it all went down, go back through the videos and you'll find that one. So yeah, when you did this jab shit really hits home for some people, you know, and there's a perfect example of it. So just to give a bit of context to that, I contemplated, do I say it before she says a question or whatnot? I'm like, no, just let it play out the way it has, and then we can provide the information afterwards. So anyways, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. You know what? There's just, I've gathered them, so I'm going to use them. We'll end up with an elbow memesy. I haven't done an elbow memesy in a little while. So, you know, it's time that flush that turd on the 3rd of May. So let's review some of the reasons why I guess we should probably do that. And let's have a look at our memes, and I open them up and drag that over there so we can see what's going on. And share the screen. Haha. All right. Time to flush the turd on the 3rd. And here's the turd himself, you know, one of the biggest turds in this country. You know, every power bill will be $275 cheaper. April Fools. Oh, that was a good one. Great way to start, you know. What a waste. Feds squander millions on crazy ideas. You know, some of the dumbass ideas, you know, decolonizing breastfeeding. How does that even make sense? What? Bill, is that $1 million? Over $1 million on decolonizing breastfeeding. Anybody explain that one to me? I'm at a loss, seriously. Need that on a shirt, flush the turtle on the third. I reckon. I wish I could claim it as my own. I just seen it online. I thought that's brilliant. I'm going to use that. Full praise to whoever thought of it. I'm not sure who come up with it, but it's spreading like wildfire. That's for sure. Dirty deals have been done with lab in China. Yeah, bloody oath. It's horrific. I've actually seen one of Elbow today throwing up. Not throwing up. He probably should throw it, but he was throwing some Asian kid around, and it was really scary the way he was doing it. And the grin on his face. I'm like, oh my god, this guy fell off stage the other day. Wasn't that a good one? That's gold. Actually, we should bring that in. Hey, I think I got that. Did I get that? No, I think I've stored it somewhere, but I haven't actually brought it in. So we'll deal with that one another day. It was pretty funny. It was such a Biden moment. Anyway, actually, we didn't get through all of them, did we? So, the mouth as an expression of racial injustice. How the hell does that work? I'm not even sure what's subverting souvenir tea towels. What's wrong with a souvenir tea towel? My mum's got a whole drawer full of them. And the drag experiment. Wow. Wouldn't we like to see somebody drag through the streets? That's what they're talking about, right? I don't know. He'll tax your inheritance and your family home. Yes, he will. This guy does not give a shit. Actually, I was seeing the other day, he keeps playing the harp strings and all that. Elbow and his mum used to take holidays to, European countries and whatnot. How broke were they, Welcome to Albaneseville, a net zero town. I mean, pictures are worth 1,000 words, and this one says a lot. That is exactly the kind of country we are creating if you continue to vote for Labor and Greens and probably even the Liberal Party. That's why they need to be put at the bottom of the bill. 1975, a mad socialist PM with a treasurer named Jim wrecked the economy and get kicked out of office. 2025, a mad socialist PM with a treasurer named Jim wrecked the economy and get kicked out of office. Still waiting for that to come true, but I'm looking forward to it, And, I think somebody mentioned something about them, kissing up to China before. Just took 30-second survey on People First website and popped that previous idea in there. But in saying that, everyone should jump on and do the survey. Cool. Thank you. I didn't know there was a survey there. I will definitely get onto that one. Good job. Karma, give him a little push. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap. Yes, great song, and it certainly says a lot about this photo, I believe. You can see, he's happily looking down on him as he bows. Who's in control here? Elbownomics, a white couple in Australia looking for a nice one bedroom, no bath starter tent. Actually, I heard while we're on that one, did I save that as well? There was an article I seen. Is that it? Nope, that's not it. All right, that's not it. Council pandemic. There it is. Yeah, all right. I got to remember my little subfolders. Let's stop sharing that one. While we're talking about that, this is very important. This is what's happening at the moment. Campers risk $110 fine with bold move in exclusive Aussie beach suburb illegal. The local council warned it would issue fines to anyone caught doing the wrong thing in the affluent suburb. This is the state we're at now, We've created a state of economic poverty for people, and this is the solution is to obviously fine them because, they're doing so well that they're living in caravans and tents. Let's find them some more. unexpected addition at a popular beach in one of the most exclusive suburbs in the country this week, and it's fair to say residents have been up in arms about it, apparently. Locals were outraged after a clothing line full of garments was seen waving in the wind between a tree and a parked caravan on Balmoral Beach in Sydney's Harbourside suburb of Mossman. While the travellers washing not only drew the ear of passerbys, the local council told Yahoo News Australia it is prepared to hand out fines to anyone caught making themselves a little too comfortable in the area. How dare you enjoy the country you live in? What a horrible thing to do. If you want to air your dirty laundry in public like that, by all means, go for it, It's a witty way of looking at it, wouldn't you agree? Councillors or rangers attended Balmoral Beach on Thursday to investigate this incident. However, the responsible party had already left. Shit, it must be hard to issue a fine to somebody without an address. Council proactively undertakes patrols of the foreshore areas to check for illegal camping. There is no official campground. There is no official campground. You're not allowed to camp here or anywhere. So very, very interesting. That's one element, but there's more. There's more. Council threatens man with $8,000 fine amid major camping crackdown. Very concerning. Even charity workers are copping the brunt of Brisbane City Council's bold move to curb illegal camping and rough sleepers. Heaven forbid they actually solve the problem. Heaven forbid they actually helped Australians. We've got all this foreign aid. Quick, keep sending that off to fund wars in Ukraine and Israel and wherever else they want to bomb people. Let's just shove all that money there and stuff all the Aussies, who've paid all their lives. Tax this, tax that. It's impossible to avoid tax, whether it's your income tax, your fuel tax, excises. How many words have they got for tax? It's ridiculous. We have all bled and paid for this country, and look at this crap that they're doing. I left off the bell altogether. Thought elbow was going down in that picture. Oh, yep, that's definitely the right word for it, Pam. I wouldn't be thrilled about people pitching up tents in the park, but finding the victims isn't the solution. Exactly, like heaven forbid we solve the problem. People should be able to buy a house. If this is the lucky country, why can't I buy a house? That's the problem. Paul Slater from Northwest Community. So yeah, $8,000 fines for trying to help these still. So charity worker who has handed out more than 1,000 tents to rough sleepers has been threatened with $8,000 in fines for trying to help those still facing housing insecurity. Wow, that's amazing. Somebody who's actually working for charity and helping people personally handed out 1,000 tents. That's a lot of tents, is now going to be fined. Wow. What a scumbag world we live in. It just really emphasizes the point of why we need to get good people into Parliament and councils ASAP, because this is, again, Brisbane City Council is doing this, no doubt their exorbitant rates are a part of this problem. This is the council epidemic. This is madness. Absolutely madness. I cannot believe this is happening in the apparent lucky country. What was this one? Oh, that's in America, ban on sleeping in vehicles. So again, they're in England they're doing the same sort of thing, calling it antisocial behaviour public space protection order. Wow, there's a mouthful of bullshit, isn't it? But here we have in the Gold Coast, a twist as a Gold Coast woman fined $806 for sleeping in her own driveway after it was deemed unlawful camping by council. Well done, council. Another case of council epidemic in this country, It's just nuts. The woman was sleeping in her own car. Gold Coast Mayor Tom Tate has asked for a review. Or isn't it nice for the mayor to ask for the review? How much flack did he cop before he did it? Of an $806 fine issued to a woman caught sleeping in the driveway of her own Broad Beach Waters home. 51-year-old woman has gained widespread support since revealing she was fined by the council. Rose explained she was sleeping in her van during building work on her home when a council officer knocked on her door at 1:30 a.m. one day last month. 1:30 a.m. Wow. I've never known council workers to work that late. How much did that cost? You know, like, wow. She said she had been handed a fine for unlawful camping in a public space. It's private property, you freaking idiots. Did you know it was illegal to sleep in your vehicle? Rose asked in a TikTok video. I got woken up and they issued me a notice which carries $806 fine. Where was I parked? On my property in my driveway. So these people really have gone above and beyond the call of duty on this one, you know. Getting out there at 1:30 in the morning to issue a woman a fine for sleeping in her own van, in her own driveway, on her own property. What a crime. How is this in any way, shape, or form just? You know, $3,000 in council rates isn't enough. No, we need an $806 fine, you know. These people are disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. Cannot believe what we're seeing here. Anyway, let's get back to elbow memes here. Sorry, I got distracted, but I thought it was really important when I seen that we should really have a talk about what I found this week. I was going to talk about a great many things, but we just don't have the time. I'm just going to quickly keep going through some elbow memesies just to end off this little session here. So it's absolutely messed up. Truth is out there regarding Labor's tax addiction. Anyone that votes for these fools, without a doubt, the most pathetic people on earth. So further taxation measures that may be adopted after the election can include inheritance tax of 15%, members of parliament excluded. Scum. Absolute scum. I cannot say what I really want to do at this particular point regarding members of the Labor Party or anyone who still thinks that they give a shit about the worker. Work all your life, pay all these taxes, fees, conveyancing fees, lawyers, costs, all this other crap, just so you can have a roof over your head. And then you'd like to pass something down to your children just to maybe take the edge off the burden of their lives. And these maggots want to take 15% of it. Hanging's too bloody good for them. Hanging is way too good for them. I can think of far more creative things to do. Removal of negative gearing, members of parliament excluded. Isn't it interesting? They always seem to exclude themselves. So the only way you can keep your own shit is to become a member of parliament? My God. Sugar tax, 50%. Look, that's going to hurt Queensland. What's one of the major farming producers of North Queensland? Sugarcane. Marginal income tax threshold of 49.5% to commence at an annual income of $135,000 singles and $150,000 for couples. So how dare you have a second person working and earn an extra $15,000? By God, you can barely scrape by on some of these things. This is nuts. Medicare levy increased to 5% for people on incomes above 100%. Again, more fucking taxes. Superannuation portfolios with balances more than 500,000 to be taxed at 30%. Lump sum withdrawals and 15% taken as an annuity. Very relevant given what Senator Rennick just said in the presentation before about, well, they haven't stolen it, they will. Not even the super funds are getting into it just yet. No, the Labor Party themselves just want to take it. Fuel excise increased to 65 cents per litre. Cool, because it's not high enough. Like, we don't pay enough for petrol in this country, apparently. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Flush the turd, all right. Flush the whole lot of them. How could anybody be dumb enough to vote Labor still? Absolutely does my head in. I get the roof overhead. However, I think the battle is far greater than the comfort of owning a home. Oh yeah, definitely. But the fact I don't know. Do you think we should have more taxes? I mean, yeah, it is far greater. You're right. Liberal and Labor Party must go. You're right. Tied naked to a meat ant's nest comes to mind. Interesting suggestion. You know, maybe we can put that on the wheel of misfortune. I believe it's the ultimate solution for a lot of these people. You know, let's make a game show out of their misfortune. Or is it misfortune? I mean, they brought it on themselves. So I don't know. Is it the wheel of misfortune? The wheel of punishment, perhaps? I don't know. Wonderful game show, I think. You ever seen was it The Running Man? Yeah, it was a bit of an inspiration there. I ring my big sister in mid-70s and lives alone. We've been doing this a long time now. Yes, we have. Thank you, Pam. Already made that movie. All right. Life will be cheaper under elbow, they reckon. Wow. 10% extra on health, 12% on food, 12% on education. I reckon it's more than 12% on food. Like that, I don't think that's close. I reckon it feels more like 30%. Education, 12%, housing, 14%, rents, 17%. So again, there they are looking after the lower echelon. And, Albo did it tough living in, housing commission and whatnot. Yeah, right. For financial and insurance, how did he get all these? Didn't he go to university or something? How hard off was he? Anyway, electricity 32% without rebates. Well done, thanks, mate. It's 34% in gas. Yes, good job. And don't you want to vote for him again? Labor has added 347 billion of new spending, fueling inflation. Any wonder they want to keep increasing all these taxes, as we seen earlier. They spend and they spend and they spend. So Australia's records worst fall in living standards in the world. Have a look at that. Australia minus 8.3%. We are absolutely plummeted. Well, a lot of other countries, Canada's, was that Netherlands and Canada's actually went up. I'm astounded they managed to achieve that. All these countries have, actually gone up in living standards. Ours has plummeted. Thank you very much, Labor. Lying to Australia has defined Albo's leadership. My word is my bond. Yeah, righto. 3 pay rises in 3 years he's given himself. $275 cut to power prices didn't happen. Under our plan, no family will be worse off. Yeah, we just seen Tent City, and we've seen how councils are finding them for doing it. Well done. Real lasting plans for cheaper mortgages. Yeah, that didn't happen. Thanks. You've destroyed it. Although right at the end, what did we get? A whole extra $60. I don't think it was even that. I think it was less. A month. Of the mortgage. Thanks, mate. Much appreciated. Our objective is not to raise taxes. Well, that didn't happen. And he's planning on doing more. No taxes to workers' superannuation. Yep, he's planning on doing that. No industry-wide bargaining. Yeah, righto. More bulk billing under Labor. Labor will keep borders safe. A lot of clinics have actually stopped bulk billing now, I've noticed. Petrol prices will be cheaper under Labor. Not happening. We will deliver the voice to First Nations. Wow. Good luck with that one. I want a more honest, transparent government. Wow, we didn't have that either. I will build a prosperous nation. No, you didn't. Yep, he's a goose. Here's a group of photos of everybody Albo has lifted out of poverty. As you can see, it's a pretty one-sided story there. Labor quietly approves additional 226,500 Afghan migrants, family reunions, and welfare support. Thanks, guys, because we've got so many people that are doing so well in this country. Who can afford it? Labor hands out 12,500 citizens in immigrant-heavy Western Sydney seats. They need to, sort that one. Give him another chance. Really? Nah, I think we should wave goodbye, just like he seems to be doing there. I mean, look at this face. How could you vote for that? I mean, don't worry about the fact he has no merit. Look at that face. 275 energy reduction promised. Yeah, that worked out well, didn't it? I just love the the money and the burning wind farm things. Industrial wind sites. That's brilliant, work of art. The RBA now estimates by June 2025 real wages will be lower than they were in December 2010. Have a look at the how things have gone, and boy did they drop. Yeah, you see, there's the COVID stimulus. Things were looking good while we were getting all our the shitload of money was borrowed from God knows where. Thanks, ScoMo. We have no idea where that come from and who we're paying money back to. And here's the result of paying all that money back. So we know it's a double-edged sword. I mean, Labor have struggled to achieve anything really, as you can see. Liberal did a great job of plummeting things down in their own right. Of course, they'll blame COVID 1984, but it was their own mishandling of the situation. Real gross disposable income per capita. Yep, here we are, looking good. Well done. Again, this is the Liberal Party brought it for us. Created the scenario, and the Labor Party took it to bed. There's another graph basically saying the same thing. More graphs. This is Australian to US dollar exchange. Things aren't looking too good. Yep, that says it all. Let the majors last. I love that one. Just sit and sips on that one. Yep, 100% the uni party. Yep, definitely. Pictures say a lot. This one says a great deal. It's a wonderful situation we're in. Very, very clever. Next election, cast your vote for digital ID. Well, I believe that's all of it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you've been entertained. I learned a lot from watching that again. It was definitely worth filming it just so I could watch it again. I hope you've enjoyed it. Once read between the lines. Chocolate has nearly doubled close. Yeah, actually, that's a good point, man. Have you seen the price of Easter eggs this year? Chocolate bunnies and shit. I think we might do. We're going to move Easter to Easter Monday. We'll go shopping for Easter eggs when they go on sale. Like honestly, the only way to solve that problem is just stop buying the shit. They'll drop the price. It is absolute rip-off how much chocolate is. I'm glad I generally don't eat much of it. Might get a chocolate bunny or whatnot for the kids and a couple of little eggs or something. I don't want to make them sick from that shit because that's what happens. But yeah, I think we might give them apples and carrots or something instead. It's going to be cheaper. Although everything's more expensive. It's ridiculous. Big businesses don't pay tax, including Australia Zoo, because they are run from the US. I didn't know that. Yeah, I can't stand him. Just the mere sight of him makes me sick. Have a great rest of your day. You too, mate. You too. No worries, Willow. Thank you, mate. I hope you've enjoyed. Two cheeks of the same ass. Exactly. No worries, Pam. Anytime. Appreciate it. So this is the point where, I remind you, there's a link tree in the description for various other channels. For those of you still watching on Facebook and whatnot, if you want to go back and see previous stories, you're going to have to check out the other options because unfortunately it's just nowhere else. And it's a bit hard to sort of go through things on X to go and check the past, although they don't seem to be deleting it. And it's just hard to find stuff, I recommend Rumble is probably one of the best ways to go through the archives, mostly because YouTube delete things they don't like. So thanks to all the Patreons, all your amazing Patreons, that are keeping us going. Big thanks to you guys. If you haven't it jumped up on yet and you're able to, that'd be really good to jump on. I am going to be bringing some content eventually. I know I say it every bloody week, but as you see, I've busted ass all week the last few days just to get the Senator Rennick stuff going. So there is a really good one that I'm going to start bringing. There's a couple actually that I want to start bringing into the Patreon thing because you guys pay and you deserve something extra. So there's going to be some really cool stuff for you guys very soon. It will happen. It's kind of like a hair commercial. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen. NQ Freedom Network at patreon.com. If you have a story you want to bring forth, or you've decided, hey, I'm going to be awesome and run in this next coming election, or you've done something really cool that people need to know about, or you found something really disturbing that people need to know about, just drop us a line at NQ Freedom Network, protonmail.com. Also in the description, there's a free 7-day trial of the Gaia network. The link is in the description. You know, that's where it's at. You know, go and have a look. If you sign up, I get something. You know, and you get something. I watch the Gaia network all the time. There's some really good stuff on there. You know, so it's such a wide variety of things. You know, to look at. You know, so I thought, hey, you know, I'd like to enlighten people to the wonderful things I find there. And, you know, I'll probably do a little bit of a podcast about some of the cool stuff I found there at some point, to emphasize this a little bit further. But if you're thinking about jumping on the Gaia network, I think it was like $120, $140 or something a year or something. You know, it's well worth it. And, you know, I get a little bit of a kickback if you do. So, you know, join that one. If you're interested in jumping into the Bitcoin, there's $10 free Bitcoin. Once you transfer some coin into it, you know, you get $10, I get $10. It's a win-win situation. How could you lose? Bitcoin just keeps going up and up and up. And don't you wish you had bought it when it's a couple of bucks? Now it's $140,000 or whatever for one Bitcoin. It's going to be a long time before I own a Bitcoin, I can tell you that much. But with your help, we might be able to slowly chip away at it, and you might be able to as well. So follow that link also in the description. And you know, for those in Townsville, you jump on Facebook. The Felicity Jane Cole for Herbert, People First Party is her Facebook. If you've enjoyed what you know, Senator stands for and what she stands for and all that sort of stuff, help her out. I'm going to do whatever I can to help out here in Townsville as well. So get a hold of her, and look, if you need a way to get in contact and you can't find it, just drop me a line. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I will see you next week with something. I don't know what yet. I haven't thought about it, but there'll be something. Don't you worry about that. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see